Ebrahim, when it comes to the world of investing, many of us have witnessed the rise and focus on ESG, and that really does speak to sustainability. Help us unpack again why this does remain a very key focus for investors the world over.
I think if you look at what's been happening in the world, there's been a tremendous focus on how do we make the world a better place, what additional value can we get out of capital, and I think investors as well are looking at their capital and saying, how much more can we get out of capital? Is it just one-dimensional? Is it only about return? Or does capital actually hold the key to unlocking certain benefits and taking the world on a path? So I think ESG is becoming important because the role of capital in bettering society, in advancing climate change, etc., that role is becoming much better understood. I think people appreciate that capital can be a force for good. And that's now put the spotlight on, what does capital do and how do we deploy capital? So I think those are the trends that we're seeing that's driving this move towards ESG.
Yeah. Not without its challenges, though. Enlighten us on what some of the major bugbears actually are.
Look, conceptually, your first issue is investing should be only about returns. And now you're saying, well, in addition to returns, we're also looking for perhaps social returns or environmental dividends. And I think people need to still perhaps get their minds around it. So it's been a conceptual shift. But within ESG itself, in order to implement it, you need to know, is this investment a good one? How well are my investments performing? What's the carbon footprint, etc.? And for that, you need data. And there's a two-pronged problem with data. On the one hand, it's the data provision. So are companies reporting the key ESG metrics? How granular is their reporting? How available is the data to the public? And then on the other hand, it's for an investor, for a regulator, how do you make sense of all the data that's coming into the public domain? How do you compare, etc.? And then you've had the data companies that have come into the fold, ratings agencies that then provide you with some summaries of the data. But then that presents its own problem because they have their own methodologies, their sources of data are different. And so as an investor, you need to look at this whole ecosystem, which is awash with data and data points, and somehow find a way to navigate.
I'm hearing you mention many of these themes, the accuracy, data collation, how we measure it, and of course then what investors do with it. What are some of the solutions we can implement to address some of these questions?
I think where we are now with ESG is you really do need a solution that can collate data, that can group data and provide it back to the user in a simple graphical interface. So we're going to see more of these ESG data platforms that act as aggregators. One, it will lower the cost for asset managers and for investors, so you don't have to subscribe to multiple different providers, and it will also provide valuable integration services. So standardizing the data, comparing apples with apples, as it were, and giving quick, fast visual feedback for decision making.
Speaking of these kind of platforms, I understand this is where RMB has also brought about new solutions to the fold. Tell us
Absolutely, more. 100%. So like we've said, we've realized that ESG is a dynamic field. There's demand for it. There's a lot of money looking at ESG solutions, but you've got a problem with measurement. You've got a problem with impact. Decision making is so reliant on data, but the data is sketchy. So we've developed two platforms, ESGNow and ESGOne, that aim to solve this for the investor or for any user of ESG data. Effectively, they aggregate data from different sources. They standardize them because we have an intimate understanding of the methodology used by each of the raters, and we give it back to the user in a visual format, either at a portfolio level, so you can look at your collection of securities and see how they come together to form an ESG picture, or for a particular company where you can drill down and across multiple data providers get one consolidated view of the company.
And we know data is key. So quite important to also notice how this is enabling the right investment decisions to be taken by asset managers.
Absolutely.